Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fizel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time as we get to ride home with each other. You can find us on the radio at IC Radio, your brand new Fox News Radio affiliate. And you can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com, and continue sending those emails. Got a lot of them today. This is the day after this famous debate that we've been waiting on. And I have attorney Don Brown. He's an author and a speaker, and one of my favorite folks. I want to say, I could not, I had you set up for this, like how many weeks ago? Don't go anywhere because we've got to talk after the debate. I did question, though, whether it was actually going to happen, and it did. I was wrong there.
Right. We both questioned that, Donna, so you aren't the only one that questioned it. But like I have said, and we said, this is going to be a summer full of all types of surprises and twists and turns. So I still got a little more popcorn left in the microwave. If you were here, I'd share with you and Phil.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Drink our Coca-Cola.
Yep.
We were ready last night. It was rare form. Was the debate anything like you expected it to be?
It was. I did expect, I expected they would try to pump Biden up, but I've got a couple of general observations. The debate was over the moment Biden walked on the stage. And within just a few minutes, one visual image came to mind, and that was of a steamroller. Just Biden was going to get steamrolled all night long. I was watching the debate with the distinguished members of Charlotte Mecklenburg Republican Women at Longview Country Club. I was sitting with a wonderful lady who is retired Army Colonel, and she turned to me and said, "This is a coup." And she was right. Inside coup by Democrat insiders. I feel like at this point, there's a civil war going on inside the Democrat Party between the Obama forces, the deep state and the media, and Biden and those associated with him. I think in retrospect, after what we saw last night, this was designed and planned by the Obama forces, even with the relatively neutral questions from CNN. And they have really, in the past, jumped on not just Trump, but other Republican candidates. Remember Candy Crowley's fact check against Romney, which was disingenuous. Chris Wallace and others, and with Jim Acosta's history with Trump, the moderators were fairly neutral for the most part. The only question I really did not like is the "Will you accept the election?" question. They didn't ask that to Biden, but otherwise they were fairly neutral. I think they have marching orders. I think the game plan is to try to make Biden look so bad they can persuade him into dropping off the ticket. They made him look really, really bad. Actually, he made himself look that way. But you know, he popped off at the mouth. I'll debate Trump anytime, any place, and here we are. And it's going to be fun to watch what happens and unfolds over the next week or two. It's whether or not they can get to him and try to persuade him to drop off, because they've got some problems, Donna. And we said this. They've created this for themselves. My understanding of the DNC rules is that it's virtually impossible to remove him now unless he consents to it, and he would have to consent to it. In addition to that, you have rules of various states. Like South Carolina, for example, has rules that you can't. My understanding is, and I don't have a real grasp on all these rules from the multiple states, but in South Carolina, you know, after a certain period of time, you can't substitute a candidate out anyway. And other states are very, very similar. So they got a problem on their hands. I'm sure they're going to continue to try to pressure him. There's a lot of bad blood between the Obama and Biden camps going back when Obama was trying to push Biden off the ticket and put Hillary on the ticket in 2016. There's been a lot of bad blood since. And so it's going to be fun to see what happens. But I'm enjoying every minute of it, as I know you are. Also.
Oh, well, I'm having a blast. So I've got to ask you, what was your favorite part of the debate?
Well, that's kind of like saying, which kid do you like the best, or which one?
I know.
I thought some of the most outrageous things. I think it was when, to answer your question, when Biden got into that sort of word salad, mumble, blumble, 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 and Trump was looking at him like this. And he said,
talking about this one, because this is my favorite part, too.
Right. I have no idea. Go ahead. Are you going to play it? Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play it.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, it's totally weird. It's just total insanity that.
Well, Trump's facial, and I'm glad that they did a side by side most of the time. Again, that hurts.
Oh, me too.
And they cut Biden off a few times to save him from himself. But in that particular exchange, Trump looks over. I have no idea what he said, and everybody's thinking the same thing. Then Trump, he doesn't know what he said either, and that epitomized really. That exchange epitomized the entire debate. Probably, and I would say if I had a favorite part, that was the equivalent of Reagan's "There you go again" comment. From 1980, when Carter was sticking his foot in his mouth, or when Reagan told Mondale, "I will not hold my opponent's youth and inexperience against him." This was a classic. Not that Trump even needed that, but that certainly was an in the heart dagger. And I think it's one that Biden will not be able to live down.
Well, I mean, it was like the rest of the country. I was looking this, and as a matter of fact, Phil looked at me and he said, "You have the same expression on your face Trump has on his face." And I said, "Well, you do too." I mean, we're both like, "What is he saying?" It's total embarrassment.
I watched the debate, as I mentioned to you before we went online, with the great ladies of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Republican Women. Mm-hmm. We watched the debate in Union County, where I now live, at the Longview Country Club, and the reaction was unanimously similar. What? People were laughing. Who could believe it? It was certainly a poignant exchange. And but I mean, Biden had this. He reminded me, as I said earlier, the debate was over the moment Biden walked on the stage, because he looked like a living mummy. To the extent you can say living, he looked like a mummy, staring off into space, staring at something. Was he staring at somebody giving him cue cards? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Was somebody giving him cue cards? But it's weird.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Donna, when you look at history of presidential debates, I've seen about every one probably in the last 40 years. Nixon Kennedy is a classic example of where if people, and this is not exactly a direct comparison, and I'll clarify just in a second, but people who heard the Nixon Kennedy debate on the radio, and radio was still popular, and thought Nixon had won, but when the ones who saw it on TV gave the edge to Kennedy by far. Now, the difference is, if you listen to the Biden-Trump debate on the radio, you'd never think Biden won. But it was the nonverbals and the facial expressions and his seemingly lifeless decorum, regardless of what he said substantively, which he didn't say much substantively. Obviously, they prepped him for 5 days, 16 advisors. He had memorized.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't. It didn't work.
No.
Babbled, and he looked lifeless. And, I've had calls from Democrats today. I can't vote for this guy. Tell me why I should vote for Trump. Of course, I've told them I'm going to vote for Trump, they say. I got off the phone with a good friend earlier and gave them the reasons. But, this is the most one-sided, and you've heard this before, and I'm just echoing what others have said, but thought it from the very moment, the most one-sided steamrolling annihilation in a political debate that I've ever witnessed in my life. And Trump, to his credit, kept his cool. I had people call me, "Why didn't Trump say this? Why didn't Trump say it?" Trump did exactly what he needed to do. He kept his cool and let Biden sink himself. And Biden did sink himself. And I was, sitting there with my friends there at the debate last night that we watched together, and people saying, "What do you think?" I said, "Listen, we are going to know really, really quick what this is about on whether the liberal media tries to protect him, spin it to protect him, or that they turn on him." And about 10 minutes into the debate, Colonel, a friend of mine, retired, who was with me, handed over his cell phone. He found the headline of the Drudge Report. And the Drudge Report, debate debacle, Democrats scrambling, debate disaster, within minutes. And the Drudge Report has turned liberal over the years.
Yeah.
The liberal media was engaged in calling it like it is, because it's very, very clear that there is a conservative movement with the media in bed with the Obama faction of the Democrat Party, in my opinion. Obama, David Axelrod, Valerie Jarrett, perhaps some others, but those three particularly, to try to get this guy off the ticket. And whether it's going to work or not, who knows? But they've got their work cut out for them. We talked about this scenario before, I believe you have mentioned to me you thought this might have been a setup because it's so early. And you're absolutely right. As it turned out, now we know from retrospect, in my opinion, there's no question this is a setup from the Obama wing. to get him out there and try to get him out there and see if he can fall on his face early enough. And he did. And he's got his loyalists around him. I heard a former New York State Senator on Fox this morning trying to defend him. You can't do it with a straight face. But he had some major gaffes. If you just want to look at the gaffes alone, that nobody can survive. No American died on my watch. Give me a break. How do you think the 13 members, the family members of those 13, mostly Marines, but also we had a Navy corpsman, and as we recall, an Air Force airmen get killed? How do you think those family members felt at that foolishness? Then he turns around and says, when Trump is president, inflation is at 55.0%. And it goes on and on and on. These are gaffes.
Yeah, but did you hear the one where he said there was no inflation when he took over?
Yeah.
And then Trump looks at, did you hear that? And I'm like, right. What is he trying to kill himself? I mean, what is he doing?
He's right about that. It's the most interesting summer of politics. I mean, I still believe, and we've discussed this, they're going to try something, whether it's try to push him off the ticket. There was, as an aside, a major Supreme Court decision today. Don't know if you've heard about it. A victory for these J6ers, which will help in Trump's case. The Supreme Court has struck down the prosecution's attempt to bring felony charges for, official obstruction of official government proceeding, holding correctly that section of the act applies only to court proceedings, not to Congress. So they took a big cut out of that today. So it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds in the last few weeks, because the next few weeks, that's going to really, really hurt a lot of the underlying charges they're trying to bring against President Trump. Just as the decision last week, basically the Supreme Court indicates with a blockbuster decision, you've got to have a unanimous jury verdict on all elements. And of course, the clown in New York, Merchan, gave instructions you don't have to have a unanimous verdict. So that was waiting just to be overturned based upon these two Supreme Court decisions. So, things are unfolding very, very rapidly just in the last few days, Donna. And last night has been the icing on the cake so far.
Oh, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you a question. You remember the debate between Romney and Obama, the first one? And it was if Obama had just gotten off of a drug dose or something. And I mean, he couldn't comprehend anything. Did it kind of remind you of this one? I mean, it was just Romney beat the crap out of him. You got to admit that. The first debate. And then Romney was told by the establishment to let Obama win the next one.
Romney won the first debate, and then he turned back into Romney. Had Trump been debating Obama, he would have killed him. But Romney turned into Romney. But to answer your question, I suppose there are some similarities to Obama's performance and Biden's, but Biden's is far, 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 far worse than anything I have ever seen. And much, much worse than Obama's poor performance against Romney in the first debate leading up to the 2012 election.
Did you see after the debate where Jill Biden, who should be ashamed of herself, by the way, so she's up there and they're calling Trump a liar, and she was getting people to chant that Trump was a liar. She was parading her liar husband across this stage as if he were the best thing that ever happened. I think it's going to be a fight. I don't think they're going to give it up, Don.
No. Joe Biden is digging her heels in. Biden went to a Waffle House after the debate and said, how do you debate a liar? So the spin that the Biden loyalists in the White House, and again, they created the problem. It's hard to take a sitting president out no matter how dumb he is. But the spin was, number one, after the fact, well, you had a cold. Number two, Trump's a liar. Well, you're the one that said no American died under your watch. You're the one that said Trump had a 50% inflation rate. You're the one that said, Biden, that the Border Patrol endorsed you. And by the way, the Border Patrol Union quickly tweeted out that they have never and never will endorse Joe Biden. So they shut that one down real quick. So those are three major lies this fool told last night, above and beyond his very anemic and weak and rambling performance.
Well, I think Trump did an awesome job. But the one thing I really wish he had mentioned, when he kept calling him a liar, I mean, it was just like over and over again. I wish he had said, I'm the liar. Remember when you ran for president and you said you had 2 degrees and you said you were at the top of your class? Fact check, buddy. You only have 1 and you were at the bottom of the class. Is that not considered a lie?
That would have been a great line. And, what could Trump have said? And I've had several others say, hey, why didn't you say this? One thing I probably would have said is are you going to prosecute him President Trump, you're going to prosecute President Biden, I would probably said, listen, as much as he deserves to be prosecuted, number one, I feel sorry for him, so I'm going to help him get into a good rest home. And number two, the special counsel has already said he's not competent to be prosecuted. So I think those would have been nice little zingers. Mm-hmm. But again, President Trump had been
he did fabulous.
He's very disciplined. He carried his strategy out well and let the country see a comparison and contrast between competence and command on the one side, competence and command on one side, versus sheer incompetence and bumbling and a lack of mental acuity on the other. And so President Trump and his team carried that out to perfection. In some ways, Trump played it pretty conservatively. He did.
So to the abortion issue, I thought he handled that pretty good.
Yeah, he played everything very, very conservatively, and you cannot find any gaffes at all in Trump's performance. We can say we wish he'd said this, we wish he said that, and there coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah, he could have said some things to spice it up a little bit, but he kept school. He did not interrupt.
It was best he didn't, because he's like me. Okay, had I been on the roll of saying what I would have loved to have said, I would have put my foot in my mouth. I think he had overall perfect, 100% perfect.
Agree. And that would have given the media talking points, or the Biden team talking points. Trump interrupted. Trump did this. Trump did that. He gave them no story at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the notion you try to fact check. What a joke. The phrase fact check has an absolute hilariously negative connotation with me. Mm-hmm. So they can try a little fact check here and a fact check. Nobody's buying their fact checks anymore than they're buying their political prosecutions. So it's like the boy that cried wolf. You cry wolf enough, nobody's going to believe it. And that's where the Democrats are. Well,
who fact checks the fact checkers? I mean, you have to know who's the wizard behind there. I mean, you have to know that. I thought it was funny, actually, not even interesting. It was so funny. After the debate, the interviewers are out there. They're talking with the Democrats, and you can almost see them like wanting to go check the pulse of Biden, to especially the California dude.
Yeah, Newsom. I don't know.
He's waiting on him to die because he wants to step right in.
And a couple of things. Number one, I don't know if you saw this, but there was some video of Jill Biden leading Joe off the stage after he got steamrolled, holding them by the hand, very similar to the video when Obama had to take his hand and lead him off the stage. It was pathetic. Mm-hmm. As far as Gavin Newsom goes, he wants it so bad he can taste it, but he's saying all the right things. I support Biden to the end. He should not step down, so that if and when this occurs, he won't have blood on his hands. Like Pontius Pilate, I wash my hands of this, and that's exactly what Newsom's trying to do. But you better believe he wants it bad. A lot of people in the party want it. Of course, they've got others chomping at the bit. The communist governor of New York, the communist governor of Michigan. Who knows where they'll try to turn. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I think the only way they can pull this off is to somehow try to convince Joe Biden to let's go to the beach. And I think the degree of animosity, if Joe Biden gets into her head, if she gets it into her head, exactly what happened. This was a setup caused by the Obama camp with the cooperation of the liberal media, because they've all turned on him today. Mm-hmm. If she gets that into her head, she's going to be hard. She's going to get mad. It's going to be hard for her to switch. And I think she's the key to getting to him. He doesn't have a clue as to what's going on with him. He thinks he did a great job. She told him he did a great job. His vice president, Kamala Harris, is trying to defend him, saying, don't judge him on what he says in the debate. Judge him on what he does. She wants
That's enough. What he does is enough to sink the ship. That was a dumb remark.
Well, she wants to stay. She, I think, is concerned that she's going to be gone too, because they want them both out. She's not going to be much of a step up. They want the cackling Kamala is going to be just as much of an electoral disaster as this guy is.
Oh, absolutely. But you've made so many points about her, because you got to think, okay, I'm the first Black woman. I'm the first. They have that they've got to deal with, probably more so than with Biden, because I'm going to tell you, she's a wine bag, and she's something. Right,
and they're trying to, as my friend last night pointed out, the retired colonel. They're trying. This is a coup within the Democrat Party, and it's a coup. And think about it: 99% of Democrats voting the primaries have voted for Biden. They could have voted for Bobby Kennedy. If they had voted for Bobby Kennedy, or if Kennedy had, were a legitimate contender, they would at least have someone who could debate. But they have dug themselves into this. And listen, this guy was foisted on the nation by the Democrat Party 4 years ago. They kept him in the basement. They knew he was incompetent, although I'll tell you, he has slipped considerably from even 4 years ago. But they kept him in the basement. They knew about his word salads even then. They knew he was incompetent. They knew about his gaffes. You all gonna be in chains. If you vote for Trump, you ain't black, or whatever it was that he said. And I'm paraphrasing it a bit.
My hairy legs. I mean, he has said so many gaps. I mean, just
And the Democrat Party knew this, and they hated Trump so bad that they risked an incompetent fool as commander-in-chief. And I believe President Trump when he says, I believe if he had been president, Israel would not have been attacked, and neither would Russia have invaded Ukraine. I believe that. Yet that Biden and the Democrats are playing footsie with World War III. He's authorized American missiles to be fired into Russia. He's an absolute fool. Hopefully the Russians don't take the bait till this guy's gone. But I think there's some within the Democrat Party, around Biden, and certainly within the military-industrial complex that want an expanded war to try to take the nation's attention off of how incompetent this fool is. But it's going to be hard to do that.
Well, that's a double whammy because, wars are money makers. Yep. We know that. And a lot of folks make a lot of money off wars. But I want to ask you another question. This pertains to Jill Biden. If this were Phil, you know what I would be saying, honey, the rest of our lives, we've lived life. You've been prez. Okay, so let's just be done with it. What is going on through her head? What is she trying to accomplish?
Yeah, well, I don't know the lady. It appears that she's extremely ambitious. It appears she loves the role of being first lady. So it appears that she has a thirst for power. And I speculate that and I've read reports of this from supposed people with inside knowledge, there's tremendous animosity between her and the Obama camp. I think she wanted Joe to run in 2016 when they selected Hillary over her. And when Obama encouraged, by all accounts, Biden not to run in 2016, I think she wanted it then. And I don't think she has ever forgiven them for that. I've read that there is a lot of tension and animosity between Jill Biden and the Michelle Obama camp. I've read that Michelle Obama became friends with Hunter Biden's first wife, who he divorced. And I've read accounts where Michelle Obama has reported to have said she thought that Hunter Biden's first wife was done wrong by the Biden family, and she probably was. And I think there's deep-seated animosity there. And I think that's probably the answer to the question to explain why Jill Biden has dug her heels in as deep as she has. And while anything's possible, I don't see any of that softening anytime soon.
So do you believe Hillary Clinton is somewhere behind the scene? She has to be, like, where's Waldo? She has to be looking somewhere, thinking she may have a chance at it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's entirely plausible. I think she was certainly in bed with Obama enough that he was her selected successor, number one. Number two, she was in bed with Obama enough that she drove the war that we fought against Libya to depose Gaddafi, which destabilized Libya even more than it is now, which led to the gun running out of Benghazi, which led to the death of Ambassador Chris Stevens and the other 3 Americans who were killed there. So she has Obama's ear. And I believe that while I think the Obama faction within the party is more powerful than the Hillary faction, obviously, he took Hillary out, and Axelrod and Valerie Jarrett are very powerful. I think that Hillary envisions herself as perhaps being the one that they will turn to if they're able to remove him. So, yes, I believe she's in the wings. And that's another thing. They nominated her before. She was woman nominee. She got beat bad, and she still hasn't divorced herself from the fingernail on chalkboard factor. She talks, it's like listening to somebody's fingernail scraped across a chalkboard. She's a weak candidate, but I do think she's waiting in the wings, and I do think she's hopeful that if they push him off, they may turn back to her.
Every time I think about when she was running for president. And her husband Bill was just, he was proud of her, and the problems they've had, their marriage and affairs and all this kind of stuff. And the one thing I remember, they had the camera angled right at him, and after she had her speech, her announcement she was going to run for president, she looked at him and he looked at her and he said, and I said, this makes me sick. I said, it was a photo op. I mean, we all know that, but they were trying to show they were a close couple. They're trying, but I think, and Phil laughed at me when I said this last night, Biden should have went to Chelsea's apartment. The one Hillary went to, where she, comes back 20 pounds lighter and 20 years younger after she passed out. What are your thoughts of okay, we got to keep Biden in. He wants to be Perez. He barely knows he's on planet Earth. What are your thoughts about putting in a double for him?
Well, I'll tell you, as crazy as it might sound, what I've said, and I continue to say it, that ever since I got involved in the Extortion 17 investigation, where the Obama administration sacrificed 30 Americans, including 17 Navy SEALs, there is nothing that I will put beyond this deep state. They do have the technology for that. The CIA has made incredible strides in terms of, rubber mask and make somebody almost look like an identical double. I tell you, last night, I don't think they brought a double in last night. That's for sure.
It was the real dude.
But if all of a sudden you have someone looking like Joe Biden that starts speaking coherently, you'll know that something is right. So there's your bellwether test right there.
I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, really, all dictators have doubles.
Sure they do. Of course they do. Of course they do. And, if that were to happen, in my opinion, if it were possible to make that happen and pull it off, again, nothing would surprise me. It will be after they have made a run at pushing him off of the ticket and have not been successful in doing that. So, again, if you see somebody looking like Joe that starts stringing sentences together without this sort of thing,
my radar will go off.
Raise your eyebrow at that point.
Absolutely. Maybe Joe needs to start watching out for falling pianos when he's walking down the street.
He needs to watch out for a lot of things. I mean, you got to be concerned about his health on multiple fronts, if you know what I mean. You got to be concerned about, just like you got to be concerned about President Trump's health. You got to be concerned about Biden's health for other reasons right now.
I thought it was interesting at the end of the debate where they actually talked about having a golf match, and Biden was, I mean, as terrible as he did on this debate last night, it was like, and I was so impressed with Trump because it was just like you do on the show. We never have a script. You and I never have a script, but we just keep it going, one thing after the other. And it was Trump was the only one keeping it going. I mean, they were trying to trip him up, I think, a little bit. And so, but he was just right back at it. No cue cards, no nothing.
Trump is a political genius. It's interesting, and we talked about this before, Donna, about the DeSantis followers. And, Bob Good got beat because he endorsed DeSantis, and Trump, he should never have done that. I'm on some text messages with some Republican friends. A few DeSantisites are still trying to hang on. And I've tried to explain to those folks, you don't understand the full connection and power that Trump has. And by I mean power, I mean a powerful connection with middle class America, like nothing that we have ever seen. Somebody said one of my DeSantisites said we could have had this on a text exchange. DeSantis debating Newsom, which was kind of a joke. And I wrote back and said, listen, I love the guy DeSantis. I love his mind, loves the way he governs, but he could not win a national election. And I tried to explain to my friends who are still there that do not understand the powerful connection that this president, Donald Trump, has with middle America. It's one that can't be broken. And part of it is because he is unscripted. And he speaks and thinks like we speak and think. And he doesn't pay reverence to what, political advisors, high-priced political advisors, consultants tell him. He goes with his gut. Now, has he made some mistakes? Of course he has. We all make mistakes. But that bond is not a bond that can be broken by the deep state. And we saw it again last night. And we saw it both in what he said verbally. We saw it in the way his demeanor. We saw it in his facial expressions also. Because the way he was looking at that guy and raising an eyebrow. What the heck's got? We were all doing the very same thing, and it was making a connection once again. So.
Well, and I'll have to tell you, every woman I know who is a big Trump fan like I am, almost every woman will say Trump reminds them of their dad. He reminds me of mine big time.
He reminds us all of the uncle that speaks his mind, that's not afraid to speak his mind, to say things that we might be afraid to say. And it's, I'm glad somebody said that. And you know, that's all he had to do. All he had to do, my grandmama used to say, the best note in the chromatic scale is be natural. And all Trump's got to do is be natural. You know, could he curb down on some things? Of course he can, but it's who he is that causes the strong bond that he has. I mean, the guy draws 130,000 people out to a beach in New Jersey after coming out of
places.
Kangaroo
Jersey.
Court. Yeah. I mean, what? Somebody said they're going to replace him with a Democrat that can beat him. I'm saying, what Democrat? Tell me what Democrat that can beat him. That can beat him, you know, legally without cheating. Mm-hmm. Tell me what Democrat or Republican can draw 130,000 people to a beach in New Jersey on the spot, just like that, just minutes after leaving a kangaroo court session in Manhattan by a communist prosecutor named Alvin Bragg. Nobody. And they're still a failure, I think, by political pundits, by the press. I think press is starting to figure it out. They don't like it, but I think they're starting to figure it out. Nobody can understand that common bond that he has. If there was another political figure in history that might have had that, it might have been Teddy Roosevelt, who was before the TV era, before our time. But not Teddy Roosevelt couldn't have drawn 130,000 people on short notice on a beach, or 30,000 there, 25, whatever it was. They're in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, in the heart of Democrat country. You know, just wouldn't happen. And so we saw that on display last night also.
Well, I mean, and he believes in getting rid of people. I mean, he asked Biden, he said, who have you fired? And he believes in, if you're not doing the job, and that made me think of my dad. So my dad fired this guy one time, and he was a black man. And so the guy started him. He said he was going to sue him and all this. And he said, you're firing me because I'm black. So dad turns around at him and said, being black has nothing to do with it. You're lazy and you're not doing your job. And it was just, so that's how I grew up. My dad. So nothing Trump ever says, I don't think twice of it. I'm just like, well, yeah, he's right. The guy's lazy. Get rid of him.
And they continue to make up things they claim he said that he didn't say. The fine people thing, whatever. They continue to make these things up out of the blue. And but you know, when he talks like Middle America thinks, which is ironic because he's a billionaire.
Because it's not Middle America.
He may be a billionaire, or at least he was, but he worked his rear end off, and his kids worked their rear ends off. When you compare his kids,
you can tell,
to Hunter Biden, every one of them is like night and day difference, because you know, he made them put hard hats on, made them go out to construction sites, made them earn their keep. So you know, and of course I understand their mom was a very integral part of that as well, Ivanka Trump, but they love their dad, and clearly he has had an influence on who they are, and you won't find one of those kids that's not just a model citizen and a model American, and that says a lot for who he is.
It does. It says something to the everyday American. Let's go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020. We're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community
Good
College.
afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. And I'll have to tell you, Don Brown likes to ride home with you in the afternoons as well. Now, Don, you're an author, a speaker. Let's talk about your latest writings. I know you got some things out there on Amazon.
I do a number of, there are 15 that are published and they're out there. You can find me at Don Brown Books. A couple I'd recommend right now would be Travesty of Justice, the shocking prosecution of Lieutenant Clint Lawrence. That book is said to have led to a presidential pardon. I'll let others judge about that. But that's one I'd recommend, Travesty of Justice. And the other one is that I'd recommend reading this summer would be Call Sign Extortion 17, The Shoot Down of SEAL Team 6. And there's also a movie, Fallen Angel, that streams on Salem, salem.com, salemnow.com, which I would recommend as well. I appreciate folks reading those and watching that movie because I think both will be eye-opening as to what we're battling in the deep state. Working one also now, tentatively called Kangaroo Court, almost done with it. We're up to about chapter 30, and it's a look at multiple political prosecutions leading up to the Trump prosecution, not only against high-profile Americans like Rick Perry, who was prosecuted, Tom DeLay, the governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, all those were overturned, but also against ordinary Americans like the McCloskeys, the husband and wife team who tried to protect their home during the George Floyd riots in St. Louis, were prosecuted for holding guns ridiculously, or against pro-life fathers like Paul Vaughn and Mark Houck, who were prosecuted by Biden's Justice Department for felonies after the Dobbs decision overturned Roe versus Wade, only because of their pro-life, positions and because they were singing and praying in abortion clinics. So the book is going to look at prosecutions against political prosecutions against not only high-profile politicians, but against ordinary Americans. I'm hoping to have the draft done within the next week or two, hoping to get this thing out by the fall, if not sooner. And so I appreciate the opportunity to say a couple things about that, Don. I hope it'll do some good.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't wait for it to come out. Okay, you know what my hot question is? Who will be Trump's running mate?
I knew that was coming. And, Trump said he's going to have his running mate at the debate.
But there were several there, though.
There were. So, you were still left to guess. But who do you have there? You have Marco Rubio, which I don't think will happen because of the 12th Amendment. They're both from Florida. But Marco Rubio was there. Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, was there. Of course, Tim Scott was there. Vivek was there. Elaine Stefanik, the congresswoman from New York, was there. So you had 5 that were there, maybe some others that I wasn't aware of. Of those 5, I'm still thinking maybe Tim Scott. Maybe I'm wrong. Trump mentioned him last night during the debate, as I recall, at least once. But who knows? He could still pull a rabbit out of the hat. You just never know, Don. It could be somebody that we hadn't thought of yet. He could, there's some speculation he's getting buddy-buddy with a governor of Virginia, Neil Youngkin. But who knows? We'll know when Trump announces it, and I guarantee the announcement will be staged for the maximum drama and impact, and it will be exciting to discuss whoever the nominee is once it happens. Now, I'll throw it right back at you, Donna. Who do you think the nominee is going to be? Do you have any ideas on it?
I'm thinking Tim Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like he kind of let that go at the slip of a tongue. I think he put that little hint out there, and I like him. I think he's phenomenal.
Ben Carson is also still in the mix.
Right, he was there, but he's too low key. I think. I think he could be the balance. I mean, you could argue that point.
Yeah,
because Trump does need a balance.
He could be. Now, Tim Scott. Listen, one thing that Ben Carson has in his favor, aside from the fact he's legitimately brilliant, okay, is that he was loyal, unlike Judas Mike Pence, JMP, Judas Mike Pence, my new name for unlike Mike Pence, who has turned on the guy, Donald Trump, who makes us even know Mike Pence's name. We would not even know who he is were it not for.
I didn't know who he was.
Right. Unlike Judas Mike Pence, Ben Carson has showed unfailing loyalty to President Trump. That's in his favor, which I would not be surprised to see that. The other thing, Tim Scott also, although he ran, for president, never took a shot against the president. Always was supportive, even in the debates they had amongst. I call them the 7 dwarfs, those back at the time with DeSantis leading the pack. And since he has stepped out of the race, has been a booming, powerful voice in support of Trump. And I would not be surprised to see it be Tim Scott. In fact, that'd be where my money would be. But I could be wrong. So I've been wrong.
No, you haven't. You've been just about like right on it. I mean, that's why I love having you on the show, Don. So I can see Trump very much like you playing a really smart game of chess. So why wouldn't he just let Scott stay in South Carolina? He's got to have his allies surrounding him. I think he learned that from the first. I don't think anybody's going to get anything over on him this time. He's had some surprises. He needs allies in as many states as he can possibly have.
He needs allies.
He needs to keep him in South Carolina.
Well, and you're raising a good point. He needs allies in the Senate, of course. But think about this. He has a very good friend in Henry McMaster, who I met for the first time and spent about 15 minutes with a couple weeks ago. Right. A really delightful conversationalist. We could go off on that. He made some comments in his talk that I really liked. But if he were to pick Tim Scott, the governor of South Carolina would select the successor. Just like when Trump tapped Nikki Haley to become, who was the governor at that time, to become his UN ambassador. Then the governor, who was Nikki Haley selected Tim Scott, or the governor selected Tim Scott was selected by the governor initially, by Nikki Haley, who later became UN ambassador. So that position would be appointed by the governor of South Carolina. I think I got that sequence right. Forgive me if I did not. But the governor would select the successor initially, and South Carolina is going to reelect whoever that Republican is, one of the reddest states in the country. Now, will you get somebody as strong as Tim Scott, or will you get a Lindsey clone? You don't know. But so that might be one reason that your point is very well taken, but I don't think that Trump is going to worry about losing that seat to a Democrat. Now, he might not have as strong of an advocate in the Senate. And, in the Senate, we've had situations where, we've had negative feet blowback by some of these Republican senators. You look no farther than Mitt Romney. McConnell has been less than enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You've had some real doozies in the U.S. Senate. But I think that Trump is not overly worried about that, because the Republican governor is going to appoint his successor if he does pick Tim Scott, and it will be a Republican almost immediately.
I see Trump is not being the person who makes the same mistake twice. So what do you think Trump has learned from the first 4 years of being in office? What do you think he'll do differently?
Yeah, I mentioned this before, but I was having a conversation with a very influential congressional chief of staff in Washington during the middle of the Trump administration, and she told me that the president had called Louis Gohmert in to the White House to ask, who can I trust? And I think that he is seeing that just because someone might be, have a resume of being in Washington for a long time, or is praised by the deep state, you can't necessarily trust him. And I think he's going to vet his, and I certainly hope that he will vet his personnel selection from the vice president all down to cabinet positions, et cetera, on who will have my back, who can I trust, or who's liable to turn on me. And I think that's probably what he's learned. Of course, he came in with zero political experience at all, coming into Washington. All these advisors are in his ear. You can trust this guy, you trust that guy. And he learned really quick you can't trust the deep state at all. They were spying on his campaign in the summer of 2016. Already with the FBI, with FISA warrants, secret FISA warrants based upon faulty information submitted by the FBI to judges. They were trying to take him down before he ever got into office. And I think he's learned that you've got to be careful, and you got to find folks that are going to have your back. And I think that's one of the reasons I think Scott and also Ben Carson are two maybe at the top of the list, because I think Trump probably senses those guys will have his back no matter what.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. Who do you see being in his cabinet? Who do you think the press secretary should be? You know who I think.
I like Vivek. Do you like Vivek?
I do. I think he would be awesome. I think he's just a little immature, and I think that would give him a good step. I do. I think he would just be a smart aleck right back. With some of the stupid questions that would be asked, I think he could handle it.
Absolutely. Another great one, although he would never take it, would be Tucker Carlson. I don't know if you saw Tucker, but
yeah.
Tucker was interviewed by a liberal in Australia just last week about his position on the Great Replacement theory. Or you're a racist. You're a racist. You say that the Great Replacement theories come into Britain to replace whites. Tucker said, "When did I say that? I never said that." He said, what I told you, what I've said, and I'll say it again, is to come in to replace native-born Americans. That includes whites, blacks, everybody. And he said, I have concern about every native-born American, because they're killing the economy so that we don't have enough children. So they're bringing in anybody and everybody from across the border to replace native-born Americans. I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but Tucker Carlson will be a brilliant press secretary. I don't necessarily think he'd take it, because he has such a tremendous following and influence in his position right now, even on social media. But you ask about the dream team of press secretaries, Vivek and Tucker Carlson will be at the top. Beyond that, who knows? I mean, there's some talented folks out there. I thought that The press secretary he had before, Kayleigh McEnany, was very talented. He's gotten kind of in the outs with her a couple of times because of some of the comments she's made on Fox, but she'd be a good one to bring back. The best one, of course, was Sarah Huckabee.
Sarah Huckabee. I knew you were going to say that. I loved her. I mean, she was awesome.
She would be a great running mate also, but it doesn't look like that she's immediately in the inner circle, but she would make a fantastic running mate because she'd make a fantastic president.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think so too. So how do you think Trump handled the question about the economy and then the border?
I think his questions were on mark about the economy and the border, particularly on the economy with what's happened to inflation. You can't afford gasoline, you can't afford groceries, and they've happened as a direct result of Biden's policy. I think he could have gone a little farther to explain, as I explained to a Democrat friend of mine, that from the moment that Biden said in October 2020, when he was debating Trump, that he would end oil and gas as we know it, that from that point on, had he gotten elected, he carried out what he said he would carry out. He killed oil and gas leases. He made us energy dependent again, which drove up the price of gasoline and fuel for truckers, which had a domino effect down the line, which drove up everybody else's costs, groceries, airline tickets, whatever. I think he could have done a little better job explaining why Biden's policies have caused this, but his crazy spending had done it. And on the border, Trump pointed out we've got terrorist cells that have now come in. We have Americans whose jobs are being replaced by people coming in, illegally across the border. He did a really good job of making a comparison and contrast. Biden is totally has no credibility on the border at all. If you stop and think about it, you have Democrat mayors like Eric Adams who are frustrated because Republican governors like Greg Abbott are sending these illegals into New York City. And of course, Trump pointed out that Biden's giving them places in hotel rooms and displacing our veterans.
Right.
Right. So I think he did a masterful job on hitting on those points. And this is something that everybody knows. Everybody knows now we've got a major border crisis. And I think he did a good job also when he was asked a question about, the addiction issue toward the end. Trump, first of all, dealt with a follow-up from the previous portion of the debate, but he got into the point that this stuff is coming across the border. And it's Biden's open border policies causing the addiction. When I recently ran for Congress, one of the points that I was driving and I was calling for the death penalty for fentanyl importers, which is coming across the border. But we lost more Americans in 1 year in 2021 from fentanyl overdose, primarily coming across the border because of the Democrats' policies, than we did in 10 years in Vietnam. More deaths from fentanyl in 1 year because of the Democrats' open border policies in 10 years in Vietnam. The liberal media or anybody else has never driven that point home. I wish the president would pick up on it and drive it home.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I just think he did a phenomenal job on all of these. So okay, I wanted to ask you about Kennedy. Okay, so do you think the flub, the horrible job Biden did last night, do you think that kind of helps Kennedy maybe? Would that give him any power at all?
Well, one, it helps Kennedy as a third-party candidate because you're having Democrats abandoning Biden in droves today. So when you abandon Biden, if you're a Democrat, what are you going to do? You're going to do one of three things. You're going to sit out. You're going to vote for Trump, which they don't want to do, but some will, or you can go vote third party. So it will help Kennedy and hurt Biden. It gives disenchanted Democrats if this guy Biden is still on the ticket somewhere else to go. Now they won't flood in droves enough to him to the point that he's going to be a credible contender for the presidency, but it will certainly drain from and hurt Biden even more, in my opinion.
I'm still concerned with early voting. So many things can happen. So what kind of tricks do you think they have up their sleeve at this point as far as the Democrats?
Well, whatever the trick is, it will be to create widespread chaos one way or the other. And of course, they tried it with lawfare, which is not working. That was their go-to strategy. Clearly, that's not working to keep them off the ballot. And people like DeSantis believe that they'd be able to bring Trump down with these cases and jumped in, but they've all miscalculated. So Plan A has not worked. Now, Plan B is, I think, to try to take Biden off the ticket, and we're seeing that in play right now. Now, if that doesn't work, will it be war with Russia breaking out? We talked about this earlier, and we talked about the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower spent the greatest portion of the final address that he gave to the nation the day before John F. Kennedy was sworn in, his farewell address to the nation to warn against the military-industrial complex. They would start a war, and Democrats are notorious for starting wars. They'd start a war as a distraction, so they may try that. They may try another pandemic with the bird flu or something, although I think that's going to be a bit harder to sell this time because a lot of people have seen that sleight of hand already.
We see through that. Yeah.
It could be, it could be a terror attack from embedded terrorists coming across the border from their policies, where they try to, because somebody sets off a dirty nuke or something like that from across the border, they feel like they have to have martial law or something that's going to clamp down on their control over the electoral process. I don't know what it's going to be, Donna, but I'm expecting something. In other words, I don't and have not ever expected they're simply going to roll over and let Trump win, without something. And had they gotten him indicted, well, they got him indicted, but had the lawfare been successful, they would have been more successful perhaps in maybe keeping it off the ballot, which they haven't been able to do yet. That's not working, so it'll be something. And whatever happens that causes, mass attention to some event, be suspicious that might be some sort of black flag event or some sort of false flag or something like black swan, I should say, or false flag or something like that.
I'm always suspicious of anything they do.
Sure.
So one other question, then we're going to have to go. And this is about, let's see, how can I phrase this? I'm trying to be really nice in the way I say things. I try not to say cuss words on the show. And I had to fight it last night, I'm telling you. But I'm talking about in the way everything plays out, because when, okay, let's just get back to Kennedy again. Okay, so if Kennedy were, I would have probably been more apt if something had happened to Trump instead of voting Democrat. I would have probably voted for him had he not chosen the VP person he is. This woman is like a flaming crazy liberal. I think she's worse than Kamala.
Yeah,
why do you think he chose her?
Well, to his credit, apparently he tried to talk Tulsi Gabbard into joining on the ticket. She turned him down. Tulsi may, she may be wound up in Trump's cabinet. The reason I think he chose this woman is because she's got money and can help finance the campaign. I really think that's all there is to it. She's a radical environmentalist, a radical liberal. And, of course, he's kind of shot himself in the foot by doing that, by going that direction. And, who's going to run with him? If you're going to run on a third-party ticket as a vice president, you understand, it's going to be a long shot in this day and age to begin with, unless Trump is heading the third party. We talked about that. But I think he chose her for money and for ideological connections. I like a lot about Bobby Kennedy Jr. At the end of the day, though, he is a radical environmentalist. He'll be pushing on his green agenda stuff. But he is, I think, America first, and he has been extremely critical of these political prosecutions. And he did his country a great service in calling out the Democrats and the deep state with all the fraud that they committed during the COVID crisis with the mask and with the very, very dangerous vaccine. So he's done a lot of good, and he certainly would be preferable to Biden any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Absolutely. Don, we have to call it a day. What would you like to say? 30 seconds left.
30 seconds left. I think last night was a steamroller. I think you're seeing a civil war inside the Democrat Party between the Obama people and the Biden people. They're going to try to get Biden off the ticket. It's going to be fun to watch in the next few weeks, and Trump's going to roll to re-election.
Absolutely. I'll send you some Jiffy Pop, by the way, if you don't have any.
I'll take it.
Thank you so much for being with me. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Don. And it's always such a pleasure. We have the absolute best folks who watch this show. Thank you so much for watching. Continue sending the emails. We love it. They've sent quite a few for you next time you're on the show, Don. So send emails to Donna at donnasedge.com. I appreciate it very much. I hope you have a super duper awesome blessed day today. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.